Okay, hello everyone. Thanks everyone for joining our today's webinar session about procurement optimization during and post COVID-19. We hope that today's session will be interesting and useful for all the participants. And we hope to keep this webinar series in the future and talk about procurement from different aspects. So today I would like firstly to introduce our team, our today's speakers. From Deloitte side, it will be me, İlker Şirinbeyli, and my colleague Nermin Alizadeh from Risk Advisory Department. And our guest speakers today, Kenanta Basaransky and Fikret Bayramzadeh from Smart Solutions Group. I would like to talk a little bit about today's objectives and our agenda. We will share with you some of the market research results. We have conducted a survey among local companies, and we gained some insights and thoughts of local companies regarding situation with COVID-19. And we will share the information how to respond to the challenges the companies are facing and how to improve current procurement function. So as I already said, we will share with you the survey results, and then we will proceed with our Respond, Recover and Thrive framework. As a part of this framework, we will talk about target operating model with regard to the procurement function. We will also discuss digital strategy of the procurement. We hope to have this section interactive, and during this webinar, we will have 3 polls. So please be active and participate in the polls. The response, all of them will be anonymous. So feel free to share all your thoughts. Please also be informed that this session is recorded and it will be available on Deloitte Azerbaijan YouTube channel in the next couple of days. At the end of this webinar, we will have a Q&A session. If any questions come to your mind during the webinar, you can type it in the chat box, or at the end of the webinar, you can raise hand and speak up and ask any related questions you have. So first of all, Nermin will share the survey results.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nermin Alizadeh. I would like to welcome all of you to our webinar. We will have conducted the survey among local companies in order to assess the impact of COVID-19 on operations of procurement function. Overall, the respondents indicated that COVID-19 has medium to high impact on the supply chain. The results of the survey showed that the majority of companies were from main 3 industries. Those are oil and gas, transportation, and retail and distribution. The rest of the industries who participated in the survey are real estate, construction, mining, airlines, trading, consulting, automobile, and marine operations. So considering the specifics of each organization's procurement operations, respondents in most cases purchase the following types of goods and services, which are administrative goods and commodities, repair and maintenance services and goods, transportation logistics, and finished goods. One of the most interesting implications of this survey was that the majority of companies have already established procurement and sourcing strategy. However, the rest of the companies have no strategy or still developing it. Also, the majority of respondents mentioned that they perform currently risk assessment of their procurement function. Taking into consideration those results, we would like to ask you to answer the following question, which should appear now on your screen. Yes, so we'll give a minute to everyone to answer, and then we can discuss the results as well. Let's wait for a couple of seconds as well so that everyone responds.
From my side, I would like to add here, so when we will have a Q&A session, I would like also to discuss a little bit on the understanding of the procurement strategy, because for me as a procurement consultant and the company who are providing the procurement services and outsourced procurement services, very surprising figure that the majority of the company has the procurement strategies. So we are facing completely different situation. That's why it would be interesting to listen and hear our guests and the participants' opinion on that.
So we will be now ending the poll. So as we can see, and as Kenan also mentioned, we will of course discuss this in the Q&A session as well. But as we can see that majority answered that for them, procurement strategy for their organization is proper planning and budgeted. Of course, it's part of strategy of organization strategy, and also procurement policy and procedures. And the third and fourth answers have the same. The percentage are vendor management and sourcing strategies and tactics. Stop sentence. If we move back to survey results, so for the majority of participants, top priorities in relation to procurement were three major factors, which are cost optimization, enhancing supplier collaboration and relationship, and cash flow management. However, it's interesting that the minority of companies indicated that COVID-19 disrupted their normal course of work, in comparison to the 21%, the majority of respondents who have seen that actually COVID-19, the situation increased the effectiveness and productivity from their remote working. When it comes to challenges that were faced by companies, the following issues were chosen by the respondents. Those are enabling remote working models for their company, developing strategies, because the strategies they already have probably were needed to be adjusted, and contract execution, which of course also was one of the major problems during COVID-19 due to the fact that physical interaction with vendors was limited. And we also would like now to give a word to Fikret from a Smart Solutions Group, who will talk about how those challenges can be addressed.
I will take over. Fikret will add the comments if it's required. So actually, thanks for this result. It's very much interesting. So we will share our thoughts about pointed issues and points here. So enabling a remote working model, from our perspective and from our experience, it's very much depending on the maturity of the organization. When we're saying that enabling remote working models, we usually should take in consideration the maturity of the internal processes. So I'm the owner of the 3 companies, and during this 1 year, I felt completely different performance metrics and performance results from the different companies based on their internal processes maturity. So the most mature companies with the established methodologies like Agile, for example, succeeded in transferring from the normal operation mode to this new normal. But those companies who were less mature and less people were involved in the policies and procedures, they were also lacking certain let's say certain alignment, certain collaboration issues. So for us, one of the main points is the establishing the proper internal processes in order to enable effective remote working models. Another point here is the mindset. And the working conditions for the staff who are working at home. So we should consider that working at home can be in the 2 modes. First of all, when it's voluntary, when the company has a policy of stay at home or working at home mode. And another point is when it's obligatory, mandatory requirements, as we can all see from this last year, which is happening with the quarantine and pandemic period. The strategies of the company and the approaches in these 2 different scenarios shall be completely different. So we as a company, first of all, were providing the employees with the necessary tools to operate from home. It's local tools like laptops, internet availability. But from supply chain point of view, it's very important to have some also systems to work and operate in. It's a client database, it's a supplier database, it's some ERP or resourcing tools, but we will talk about them a little bit later. I touched the digitalization process. We will be talking about digitalization today on the later slides, on the further slides. So digitalization, I think it's one of the most enablers of the remote working models. Without having, when we say digitalization, it's not only about digitalization of the procurement. Digitalization, it's a contact phones of your customers somewhere in the cloud. It's also called digitalization. Automated supply chain system and enhanced complex ERP systems with the access from home, which is placed on cloud, is also digitalization. So digital processes established in organization, they are enablers from supply chain and in general from the company performance point of view in the enabling remote working mode. Developing of the strategies. It's also very interesting point here was raised. What is the strategies for us? So if we're talking about the procurement strategy, for sure for us, digitalization of the procurement strategy must be mandatory part of the supply chain operation, but the procurement strategy cannot exist in the company as an independent part of the whole strategy landscape of the whole governance model. So it's very important to focus on the company general governance model in order to provide proper link and proper connection to the supply chain strategy. So this is one of the critical and the mandatory part of the developing of the strategy. Regarding the contract execution, 21% answered that this is what they would like to, where they experience the gap and the difficulties. I can say here that it's very much dependent on the mindset of the people. We are also been asked, or we faced ourselves in our company with that kind of issues. Here it's very important to establish disrupted mindset inside the company in order to fight with the obstacles like local legal department is not accepting digital signature, or our customers, they are not used to sign contracts remotely with the digital signature. Another side is a governmental support on the digital signatures and how it is communicated to society, how it's communicated to the business segment. We still have issues with the digital signatures on the level of perception from the government and the support on the level of the courts. But mindset here is very important. We should be ready and we should push through these obstacles in order to teach our customers, our suppliers, for using digital documentation. Another point here is the ensuring of having sourcing and the contracting tools. For sure, this is the mandatory requirements. You should have some place where we would like to conduct these agreements or make our proper sourcing. So the tools, they're also enablers. We mentioned here the digital signature with Asan Imza. I already talked about that. It would be very interesting to ask from the participants today who are using the Asan Imza and how it's used, and if there are any practices in the local market due to pandemic, due to working stay-at-home mode, signing the contracts with the digital signatures. It would be interesting to share your opinions. Ikret, if you have something to add, please feel free.
Just shortly, hello everybody. Just shortly, I will add that we really faced with this kind of issues during last year with our clients. Even the people who told about the possibility of remote work and some beginnings in that direction, but actually, when this period started, we faced it with a lot of delays because of all these topics cannot talk about. So it's all about people, it's all about processes and strategies, and it's all about technologies, because some of organizations, even big organizations, were not ready to start fully remote work because of not readiness of the people and processes. So it's reality, and we should understand and work on it before talking about global digital transformations. We should start to talk about our readiness for these kind of things. That's all.
Thank you very much, Kenan and Fikret. Again, I would like to mention that we have a partnership with Smart Solution Group, and we work on joint projects together. So as a next, we would like to talk about our Respond, Recover and Strive framework, and mention several stages of the recovery procedure. So firstly, we would like to talk about the survival paradox. What does it mean? So from the survival paradox perspectives, it's basically about managing a business continuity and dealing with the present situation with the COVID-19. It's about ensuring that your existing and your new suppliers are reliable, and also making sure that the strategic suppliers can stay in the business after the shock. There are also several external factors that should be taken into account, that the demand is quite variable and it's not always possible to adapt to the changing patterns. And there are also economic uncertainties and also uncertainties from the regulatory side and relief strategies of the government. For some of the companies, it's already in the past, they have recovered from this stage, but most of the companies are still struggling and trying to deal with the disruption. If you look broader on the whole supply chain, the uncertainty shifts toward tier one suppliers. For example, you may have the visibility upon your tier one suppliers, but what's happening beyond that, it's quite unclear and is quite unstable, which create many difficulties in managing business in a number of the industries. When we talk about the recovery stage and midterm strategy, we're basically focusing on the demand paradox about shifting patterns of the demand and how organizations should rethink their strategies in the midterm and also reconsider their operating strategies to withstand this disruption. But when it comes to the sourcing strategy, the supply bases are currently being impacted, and the companies need to adjust and reevaluate their sourcing strategies. Maybe they should some companies should undertake cost reduction saving opportunities so that they ensure the sustainable recovery from COVID-19. We will also want, at the recovery stage, talk about operating model paradox and talk about target operating model for the procurement function. So here we are talking about four dimensions of the target operating model, which are strategy, processes, technology, and people and organizations. When we talk about operating model, so it's the questions here is about should companies do companies require new configuration of their organization? So should they consider new operating model, or they should change existing models that are already proven? We already talked about strategies. There are a lot of options that the companies can undertake. It's not only cost reduction, it's also risk management and business continuity. Companies can also move towards lean transformation and digitalization. Of course, depending on the selected strategy, the business processes shall be adjusted upon. The bottlenecks inside the processes shall be eliminated and should be moved towards the agile mindset. For example, if you consider lean transformation, you should also change your business processes upon lean philosophy. This will give you more insight-driven processes, and you can benefit from the analytical point of view. If we talk about cost optimization, there are some opportunities from the organization side. For example, moving towards shared services or global business services to ensure that the processes are more standardized. We will talk about the technology separately. Our colleagues will share their experience and their thoughts about digital strategy. But currently, we would like to ask that considering current disruption from COVID-19, which of these areas, which of these dimensions you think your organization need to enhance as a first priority? So basically it's either strategy, processes, people, organization, or technology. So please share your thoughts. So very interesting responses. I was actually expecting more responses on the technology side, but interestingly, people think that people and organization factor shall be firstly reconsidered in their organization. But nevertheless, we would like to emphasize the need for digitalization and the importance of the technology advancements in the companies. So so Kenan will catch up on this part.
Thanks. Yeah, the results are very much interesting, but honestly speaking, as an owner, I would agree 99% that everything depending on the people and the organization, and we should focus. So the all other things, they are more tangible. We can implement easily technologies. We can ask the consultants or do by our own forces the processes and strategy. But the people, this is the human capital, and I think in today's business, main competitive advantage of the companies. So those people will use everything which was mentioned here. So I would agree with this. I was not expecting this, but looking on this from that perspective, which I just mentioned, I would agree that the people and the organization shall be focused. And also we touched the subjects of the mindset, and we see that how in the transformation mindset plays the crucial role when we're moving to, I don't know, to agile methodologies or some other methodologies. The mindset, it's like a 50 or 70% of the success of everything which you're implementing. So I would agree. Regarding the digital strategy, so the definition of the digital strategy, one of the definitions, there are hundreds of definitions. The digital transformation, the process of shifting your organization from the legacy approach to new way of working and thinking using digital, social, mobile, and emerging technologies. What we are observing here with regard to digital transformation. Some companies and some people, some organizations call digital transformation just some automation processes. In our understanding and in, let's say, accepted terminology, digital transformation, it's when you're doing something differently using different or new tools with the certain, I don't know, customer-centric approach. Digital transformation is not an automation of the current processes. It's not activities which falls under digital transformation terminology, but we should be very careful here and mention that digital transformation, it's a data-driven process. Without having data in organization, you cannot proceed with the digital transformation. So, in our market especially, we have a completely different maturity level of the organization. So for the organization which do not have any, I don't know, ERP systems or any accounting system or any CRM system, installing CRM system for them, they call this digital transformation. This is not digital transformation, but this is not wrong step. This is the mandatory step in order to come to the digital transformation. Because first you need to gather data. First you need to automate whatever you have. Then you have to make a sound data-driven decision in order to work on the customer journey or to work on the pain points, and develop something new, and then to bring some disruption. So the requirements, it's a change in the leadership, it's different thinking, innovative mindset, and increased use of technology. As you can see, 3 out of the 4 points, it's related to the people, so it's kind of correlating with the previous pool. And this leads for sure, but this obvious thing, to organization, the improvement experience of the all stakeholders. It can be suppliers, can be partners, can be internal stakeholders, etc. So we are providing the methodology for the procurement diagnostic, let's say, and transformation or automation based on the steps which is mentioned on the slide. We conduct jointly with Deloitte initial assessment versus best practice. This allows us to understand the maturity level of organization and the language the internal staff are talking to each other. Usually it's several days assessment, which allow to understand what is happening. Then the necessary step which is recommended to do, it's a detailed assessment in order to deep down deeper with the some documentation, some processes, some interviews, and understand the real pain points and real issues, because sometimes the people on the interview, on initial diagnostic, people say that we have an issue with this and that, identifying this as a problems, but in reality, when you hear them, when you analyze, when you hear several people, we can end up with the understanding that the problem in reality is completely in different layer. So can you please return to the slide? Darmin, I think you switched. Thanks. So after detailed assessment, we are doing the gap analysis and identification. When we're saying about gaps, this is always done versus best practice or company internal experience or external experience if this assessment is done by external people, but it's always comparing to something. And taking into consideration, it's a very important stage, which now I would like to emphasize on. It's very important to, especially according to our local market and the maturity level, it's to make cross links with the expectations of the stakeholders. So the procurement transformation or the change management in the procurement cannot happen just based on the best practices, just based on, I don't know, SIPS methodology or Deloitte methodology or Smart Solutions methodology. It has to be very much tailor-made to expectations and the readiness of the company. So I can bring the example of two completely similar banking organizations, both almost the same P&L, they are working in the same segment, but the expectation of the shareholder on the management level, expectation on the change management, expectation on the level of the procurement penetration in the process is completely different. So the practices and the good practices, scenarios which were successfully implemented in, for example, bank number one, it applicable to any industry, to the financial industry, to FMCG, to production industrial, will not work in the bank, in my example, number two, because the regulatory organization is completely different and the expectation of the shareholder or the C-suits, let's say, completely different. So this part of the methodology, it's very much recommended to conduct, to align and not to build, for example, NASA or Pentagon in organization when it's not required. So we can solve the problem step by step. After this alignment is done, it's recommended for sure to conduct 2B. It's like a formalization of our future model, how we are going to proceed with the further steps. And then 2 steps, which can be done simultaneously or can be done one after another. It's a pure automation, just automation, or procurement digital transformation. Procurement digital transformation cannot be done without procurement automation. So the companies who has some data and they can analyze this data, their suppliers, their material costs, their inventory, the whole supply chain and performance, the internal people performance, they can start with the digital transformation activities because they have some data, and with the proper methodology of analyzing this data and understanding what goal we are trying to achieve on the later stages, we can start procurement digital transformation. If this data is missing or data is not accurate enough to build such, let's say, scenarios or hypotheses, we recommend to work on the internal automation system, which will help to overcome some operational obstacles and in the same time to gather data for the further analytics and the further shift in the way of working, which we call as a digital transformation. So this is from my side regarding the digital strategy, how we see it. If any questions, please, or we can continue with other slides. Fikret, if you have something to add.
Just, I would like to highlight one more thing related to all these topics Canan told. From our practice, nothing's possible if the cross functions also will be in the same project, on the same way, on the same wave, let's say. Because actually, if we are going to change something within procurement, it will not be possible without finance, without HR and other functions. I mean, that's why this decision should be done on a company level, on a top management level. Without these things, it will not be possible to make something better. Even before digital transformation, to understand problems, real problems of the current situation.
Absolutely true. It's the same as a strategy. So it has to be company strategy in order to develop the proper and workable procurement strategy. And in the same way, if you want to transform procurement, you have to transform, or you have to at least align and adjust with the cross-functionals. That's it.
So we will having another poll here regarding the procurement technology. So please share your thoughts. 1 second. And what do you think? Which of this technology will add the most value to your company? 1 minute time. So most of the people responded regarded e-sourcing and vendor management. So Kenan, what are your thoughts about that?
So my thoughts are clear. This is the, let's say, hot topic in our market currently. Actually, P2P. Some elements of e-sourcing and the vendor management, but it's a bit more complex process. When we say about the P2P processes, it's automation of warehouses, it's a material codification, and entry level to P2P automation, it's much more difficult compared to the quick wins which can e-sourcing and vendor management processes bring to the organization. So this one is not surprising for me. Sure, we can support with the e-sourcing and vendor management activities, and I think what is the interesting that the data analytics is less than the contract management, but almost the same. In general, if the poll would be not the radio button but multiple choice, I would select probably everything. So without complete information, so coming back to my point on the previous slide, implementing e-sourcing and vendor management probably will not be enough for the complete digital transformation of supply chain. To do this, you should have all processes listed here. So you should have the full P2P process, you should have contract management process, and then based on that, you can build some data analysis for the future steps.
Thank you very much, Kenan.
Thanks.
So moving back to our survey results, we also ask about what respondents think about situation after COVID. So almost half of the respondents expect that there will be slow recovery during 18 to 24 months. However, other 26% expect that there will be volatile recovery with a number of collapses. And the rest of the respondents were split between two answers, which are a rapid return to pre-COVID economics, and some 13% were less optimistic regarding this and think that long recovery will happen probably during the next 4 to 5 years. So our framework also addresses those scenarios in various ways. So for the best case scenario, we expect that the healthcare system will be successful and will slowly recover in order to fight the virus. This will also affect the supply and demand with midterm disruptions. However, governments will try to mitigate those risks. If in case of mid-worst case scenario, we expect that virus remains chronic and might return in autumn and has a seasonal effect. And both supply and demand sides will take a long time to recover. And although government will try to mitigate those risks, those cannot be sufficient. And in worst case, more pessimistic scenario, we expect that most of the populations will be infected, and it will rapidly disrupt business landscape, and it will be harder for governments to mitigate the risks. And if we think of the local market, we can say that currently local economy is reviving, and we're currently facing best to mid-worst scenario, as the government and healthcare system has already started vaccination. Things are probably expected to come back to normal. And yes, so now Ülker will summarize today's discussion.
Yeah, we have 10 minutes left, so we also want to save some time for Q&A session. Therefore, we are summarizing our recommendations. We already talked about strategy simulations, namely mentioned scenario-based approaches, and how to forecast based on these scenarios. We already talked about digital strategy and digital optimization, and we talked about operating model paradox. We plan to continue this kind of sessions in the future, of course, if there is demand from the client side. And maybe in the future, we will talk about cost and cash optimization and supply risk management in more details. So again, I would like to thank everyone for participation and for joining today's webinar.